Hello, I'm that one guy that has a lot of opinions about the state of Yu-Gi-Oh! And sometimes you guys like to hear me talk about it, so I sometimes make videos around it. And I decided to make this video for two reasons. One, because I allotted the entire day to play the new Final Fantasy, and I forgot that I have to actually wait for it to be delivered. And two is because there's been changes that we've been seeing with Yu-Gi-Oh! That's been going on for a while that we've been aware of, but now it's getting slightly uncomfortable, and I want to address those and talk about those and talk about how Konami really, because that's what every Yu-Gi-Oh! Player loves to do. So first of all, the new episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! 7's released, and a lot of people were thinking that once they saw the design of the new character and how very not Takahashi-esque it was, it does not look like Yu-Gi-Oh! It looks like it's Card-Fight Vanguard. I heard that it's now being directed by someone who directed Card-Fight. I don't know if that's true. Don't quote me on that. And I had the exact same feeling as everyone else. I looked at it and said, that's heresy. However, after watching the first episode, it brought to light several things that I feel is worth addressing. I stopped caring about the style very quickly because the animation quality has not gone down. It's still animated very well, and I've seen some anime that nowadays don't look that good in terms of their animation. It's very simplified, and they clearly have the budget to put into the animation quality, so I stopped caring about the style very quick. So apparently, maybe I'm just a terrible person. Maybe I'm not a true fan. I don't know. The anime was, first episode, like, he's an elementary schooler. Typically they're high schoolers or maybe an adult. I think Yusei was an adult. Was he an adult? He felt like he was an adult. So I'm gonna say he was an adult. I don't care about his age. He felt like he was an adult. And now he's an elementary schooler, and now they make a very clear point of trying to say that that he wants to make rules for Yu-Gi-Oh! That's away from the strict rules that surround them. And it's a not very subtle hint to, hey, the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Has become so complicated that it's difficult for new players to get into. So let's make a new version of Yu-Gi-Oh! Which I personally think is a fantastic idea. We saw this with Speed Duels, except that quickly got out of hand because it became just as complicated and as horribly managed as regular Yu-Gi-Oh! So then it stopped. That's not even an entry point for new players anymore. So that was a horrible failure. But now we have Rush Duels, which is also 3 slots for monster cards and spell cards, and it's supposed to be faster, as the name suggests. And you can draw up to 5 cards every turn instead of 1. You can summon as many monsters as you want to. It's a whole new thing, and I personally like it. The problem is that everyone kind of suspects that it's not coming to America, because for some reason Konami likes to separate the Japanese and the American markets, which I understand why they would want to, but it's just turning out to be a terrible plan. And because this is the kind of the final nail in the coffin for me saying that Konami realizes that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been horribly managed. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been one of the worst managed card games I've ever seen. It really hurts me inside to say that, because Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the card game I grew up with, and it's the one I love the most, and even in the manga, they've changed it to be more of a gateway for new players. Typically, nowadays, it would be, there's an anime, like let's say GX, and then they'd make a manga of that series, which would be loosely based on the anime. Or there'd be 5Ds, and then they'd make the manga, and it'd be loosely based on the anime. And they did the same thing with Zexal, and they did the same thing with Arc 5, very loosely based on the anime. That one got weird. But now, we have Vrains. That one just came out. There's no manga for Vrains. In V-Jump magazine, it's actually been replaced with OCG structures. It feels like Card-Fight Vanguard also, because it's the main character going to a card shop and learning to play the game. And it feels like it's in the real world. And it's a little uncomfortable, and it makes me strange. And I wanted to get the Tankobon for you guys to show you, but it never came. And I'm now contacting the store I bought it from to see if I can either get my money back or not. At least the manga OCG structures is still in the style of Kazuki Takahashi. That's nice. At least we still have that. But still, it just seems very weird looking at the very simplified version of the new main character. However, I will say that if the decision was made to make it easier to animate, then I can't be that upset, because I mean, like, anything to make the animators' jobs easier. Like, let's be real. Like, the Kozuki Takahashi style is very detailed. And it really hurts me thinking that the Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duels aren't gonna come to America, because the card frame is gorgeous. I don't care what you say, you can stop and be shocked at the new card frame, but the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card frame that's been going on since Konami took it over after Bandai in like 1997 or something, it's bad. It's not good. It's functionally very bad. Like, as a designer, it's not good. Even Magic the Gathering is finally straying away from their tried and true layout, and they're not even doing that much, but at least they're doing it. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been the one that's been sticking to its guns this entire time, and now that they finally decided, you know what, let's shove all the stars into one location because it's taking up too much space, and we can use that space for the artwork, and we can expand the artwork. We don't need the frame to be that thick on the sides. It's just so much more legible, and it's gorgeous, and I want that to be the new legitimate frame for Yu-Gi-Oh! I already bought a booster box of Rush Duel cards from the internets that I don't know if I'm gonna make a video on it, but I love the card. I love the card design so much. I don't think Vrain's got an English dub. Does Konami not care about America anymore? Does Konami not care about us English speakers anymore? I am hurt. I'm concerned. I hope that this new direction is them taking a step back in order to analyze what they need to do in order to get new players into the game, because the barrier of entry has now just gotten so difficult. Even someone who just stopped playing around pendulums, like I did, now tried getting into the game again, and I'm like, oh my god, even I can't get back in. And some of you may be thinking, well, it's not hard, I don't have a problem. Well, that's because you don't have the barrier of entry that everyone else has to deal with. You know the meta. The problem with Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that you have to memorize every single card, and every single card is unique. It's not like Magic, where it's just you look at the card and it's like, oh, lifelink? Cool, I know what that is. That's a universal term. And you can make a very easy deck and only have to memorize like a few cards, maybe a few sentences. With Yu-Gi-Oh! You don't have that luxury. It's a paragraph per card unless it's a normal monster. Really, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has just become a memorization game. That's really all it is now. There's not a lot of strategy involved. Okay, you know what, I take that back. There's a ton of strategy involved, but it's all mind games. And the reason I say that is because hand traps ruined Yu-Gi-Oh! You can say that it was Xyz monsters, you can say that it was pendulums, you can say that it was links. You're wrong. It was hand traps, because hand traps are fundamentally broken in terms of the balance of the game. Like when we had Honest, fine, no big deal. It only works for light decks, and even then it didn't work for really all that well for all light decks, so it was, and you only had to deal with maybe one of them because people wouldn't really run more than one because of the restricted list. I forgot, that's why. There was Effect Veiler, which was really annoying, and it was like one of the best cards during the time of it when it was the only one of two hand traps, and it was a little annoying because freaking everyone had Effect Veiler and it was very expensive, but now Effect Veiler ain't nothing. The way you have to balance Yu-Gi-Oh! As a game designer has to be approached from a very different perspective, because it's not a resource-based card game. Like Magic has lands, which act as money to pay for cards, and Pokemon has energy, which act as money to pay for attacks. Yu-Gi-Oh! You just play the cards. That's all there is. And you try to balance that as a game designer by saying you can only normal summon once per turn, slow it down. You have to have some rules with when you can play certain spell cards. There's quick play spell cards so that you can play that whenever you want. However, traps were balanced by first setting them down. You couldn't activate it on the turn you set it down, so it slowed it down. You slowed the process. More importantly, setting it down told your opponent, hey, I have a trap. I'm trying to trap you. You still have to kind of have a good understanding of the meta, or at least general trap cards, maybe some staple trap cards, whatever. Still, the opponent had the know of you have a trap. Now, with hand traps, they don't have that signal. Now, because it's just in the hand, everyone has to constantly assume that everyone has a hand trap, unless they know their opponent is playing a deck that will most likely not run it. And that's what I was talking about previously, where Yu-Gi-Oh! Has just become a memorization game. And you can make the argument of like, hey, in every card game you have to like learn the meta, which is true, but it's just so much worse in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it's not balanced that way. Like with other games, it's like, yeah, the meta, people like to play popular decks, certain decks are better than others. With Yu-Gi-Oh! It's, hey, in order to play the game well, you have to learn the meta. And that's where it's become an issue. I understand speed duels. I understand why they wanted it. I said in a video earlier that it was not gonna work because the mindset of English-speaking Yu-Gi-Oh! Players, us over in the West, think about Yu-Gi-Oh! Differently. It's very much I don't want to say an elitist mindset, but it has that strong I need to be the best in like a very toxic way. Even very nice Yu-Gi-Oh! Players still have that mentality in the back of their mind because you need to adopt it in order to be good at the game. Konami's fostered this environment by separating the two markets, the Japanese and the Western market, which I get it, business, it makes perfect business sense. Problem is, in terms of managing the game, it doesn't. Because now you're managing 2 games, essentially. Now they're managing 3. And having multiple versions of a card game is good. Like Magic has Commander, and there's Cube if you want to draft, and there's Modern, and there's Pauper, yeah, that one. Konami realized they need other ways in order to draw people in, and having multiple different versions of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is kind of the way to do it. And we can't really have a Pauper version of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it's boring. I've tried with my friend. It sucks. Problem is, speed duels failed because Konami can't manage a game, and it's just become so evident nowadays. Konami just doesn't know how to manage a game. Maybe the game designers know, maybe it's Konami butting their business corporate crap onto the game designers. I don't know. I like to think it's that way. I don't have any evidence of that, but at least now they're recognizing the problem. They're falling into the same pitfall of having to separate the markets and trying to figure out what this one wants versus what this one wants, instead of trying to have a nice harmony between the two, which would ultimately have less development costs overall, and it just doesn't make sense to me why they would want to separate it if they're managing a game. So if you take anything away from this, Yu-Gi-Oh! 7's is not that bad. It's actually a very fun anime. Rush Duels, I want them. The card frame, though it looks very strange, and you will be shocked when you look at them, it's a better design, and Konami should make that the standard design. Hand traps, I will still stand by the statement that it ruined Yu-Gi-Oh! I stopped playing because of hand traps, I realize. Fourth, it was because Konami doesn't know how to manage a game, which everyone kind of knew. I'm not saying anything new. I just wanted to talk about this because, well, I needed something to do while I waited for Final Fantasy VII, as I mentioned, and so this was my alternative. So thanks for watching me ramble. I hope you enjoyed this video. Tell me if you have any opposing opinions in the comments. And maybe you think I'm dumb and I'm wrong, and you think because I don't play Yu-Gi-Oh! Anymore, my opinion is worthless, which I fully understand. I have the exact same stigma. If you clicked away from the video when I told you that I don't play Yu-Gi-Oh! Anymore, but I still follow all the manga and all the new rules and all the new versions of the card game, then I can't blame you, because I think the same way as you do. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay beautiful, and keep playing.